What's up, guys? So today we're doing a film review. The film in question today is, of course, Knives Out. It's a good film, and I shouldn't have to tell you that. The critic scores sort of speak to that all on its own. Rotten Tomatoes, the critics gave it a 97, because apparently it's that good. And in most cases, when you're looking at a Rotten Tomatoes score, normally the audience score is higher than the critics score, because critics are doing it as like, how well does it adhere to like certain standards that like the film industry has for itself, whereas the audience is mainly just going, how enjoyable was that film. In this case, the audience score is actually lower. It's a 92, but still, both scores sitting very comfortably in the 90s is nothing to shrug at. They are also the highest two scores out of the 5 that I've got here. So MetaCritic's critical score is 82, and its user score was 75, which is actually the lowest score of the 5. And then on IMDb, and links to go and see all of these scores for yourself, so you know I'm not just making up random scores, will be in the link in the description down below, so you can click on the links and check it out for yourself. But IMDb's the average score from its members, and it's got like 300 something thousand votes on it. The average score ended up being, I think they wrote it as 7.9, similar to how the Metacritic user score is written. But if you take the decimal point away, you could slap a percentage sign on the end of it, and you've got the same amount. So we got a 79%. I convert all scores to percentages just so they're easier to add up, to give me the average total, which is what we are trying to either meet or beat. So our average total is 85% for this one, which, I mean, still isn't anything to shrug at. You're 15% off being a perfect movie. So it's nothing to shrug at. Cool. So getting into the actual review itself. If you haven't seen any of my film reviews before, what I do is I take the film and I break it up into 10 different parts. Those being script, casting, the acting and directing, the cinematography and the editing, the set design and locations used, the soundtrack, the special and visual effects. This film uses more practical effects, so that's what we're looking at here. The costuming and the makeup, the accuracy to a source material, or its originality as a new thing. This one, I believe, gets an originality one. I don't think it's based on anything. There's nothing in the credits on the back that says it's based on the work of. So it's getting an originality score, and then the little last one is the marketing. For that, I went onto YouTube and I just looked up the trailers. The film's released by Lionsgate. Lionsgate have its own YouTube channel where they post their trailers online. Lucky for me, because I was able to watch the first and the final trailer for this film, and I think they did their job kind of well. So, diving in, script. I thought this script, I mean, the score I've given it is a near perfect. It's a 9, but that's only because watching this to do the review was not my first time watching this film. This isn't like a reaction review. I've watched this movie 3 or 4 times, watching it for doing this review included, and since the first time, every time I've watched it, I've been able to pick up more and more of the subtleties in the story that if you are actually a fan of murder mystery films and fiction, and you're actually looking for the clues yourself, you can actually rather quickly arrive at the correct conclusion. Obviously, knowing who it is helps you sort of go, okay, this is where we've got to aim for, and that's obviously not how an actual investigation is run. But there are still subtleties in the script and in the story that help you piece it together. Some of those subtleties go pretty close to, and will for that reason be included in the actors' portrayal of their characters, the acting and stuff. But as a script, I thought it was really well written to be able to still be enjoyable time after time, as well as still engaging and still sort of hiding little secrets all around the place. And so it's for that reason that I got a 9. The casting. Now I'm gonna just be looking at the 11 names on the cover here. Alright, so we're also going to be pointing out either their most notable role as of right now, or one of their more recent roles. Okay, because with the exception of one. So obviously Daniel Craig most recently, probably most notably, played James Bond. Chris Evans is obviously Captain America, and Ana de Armas, giving us our 3 at the top here, recently played Joy, Kay's AI girlfriend in Blade Runner 2049. So there's some, plus her talking about rising stars and stuff, she is shooting towards the top. And I think her portrayal in this film as like the main character is, yeah, I think it's going to be one of the things that really helps her get there, which is good because she's an incredible actress. Jamie Lee Curtis most notably played Laurie Strode in the Halloween films. Michael Shannon played General Zod in Man of Steel. I think that's the only thing that I really know him from. I know he's been in other stuff, but I think that's the only thing I know him from. Don Johnson, I had not really heard of that much. I sort of only really knew him from this, so I actually had to look up his roles, and he actually portrays Big Daddy Bennett in Django Unchained, which if you've seen that film and you're trying to remember who that character is, he is the first bounty that Django collects after he's been freed. So it's kind of cool. We love ourselves a Quentin Tarantino reference. Toni Collette more recently played Jane Mark, the CIA operative who ends up being the villain of Triple X, Return of Xander Cage, which is the most recent Triple X film. Lakeith Stanfield played Snoop Dogg in Straight Outta Compton, which I'm gonna be honest, I haven't watched. So I don't know, maybe let me know if I should watch that or not. Catherine Langford is obviously Hannah Baker. I think that's going to be, until she does something more recognisable, I think that's going to be where everyone knows her from, is she played Hannah Baker in 13 Reasons Why. We've then got Jaden Martell, who played Bill in It, both chapters 1 and 2. And then our 11th actor on the cover here is Christopher Plummer, and he's the exception to this rule of being recent. His possibly best known role is from 1965 when he played George Von Trapp in Sound of Music, which also, interestingly enough, at its time of release became the highest grossing film of all time for its time. And I was actually looking this up the other day because it's interesting, and this is a film review, so it's kind of relevant. But since 1915, there's only been, I think it's 11 films holding that spot. Obviously, right now, it's Avengers Endgame. Before that, it was Avatar. I think before that, it was Titanic. Both of those being James Cameron films, and then before that I think it was, can't remember the exact order, but Jaws and E.T. I think it was, and so there was like 4 films in a row where it was either Steven Spielberg or James Cameron. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting. And there are 2 films, I think Gone with the Wind and one other one from much earlier in the 1900s. Both had spent 25 years at the top, so it's kind of fun to look at, and it's very interesting stuff. But anyway, with a cast of actors that have been in so much stuff that's now, pop culture, it was really, I mean, the film was really going to do hard to not get a good score based on just those first 2 things. Incredible actors and an amazing script. And yeah, I think it actually did far a bit better than was expected, I think. It was kind of a sleeper hit because, like I said, it's not based on anything. So no one's like, oh, they're making an adaptation of this or a remake of this, which, let's be honest, is pretty much all Disney's doing now. They have their fairy tales, they have their remakes coming on, they've got Marvel and Star Wars, which are just based on either comics or spin-offs of particular characters these days. Yeah, so having an original just thrown randomly in the works was gonna get lost to the noise. I'm so glad it stood out so well. Number 3, the acting and directing. Now I've also got the producer sitting in here simply because he's a frequent collaborator of the director, Rian Johnson's, who also helped produce this film as well. But Rian Johnson directed the film Brick in 2005. He directed the time travel film Looper in 2012, and he was the director of The Last Jedi in 2017. The movie in the sequel trilogy that everyone seems to want to hate on the most, and I don't get it. It's a good film, but especially between Looper and The Last Jedi, one would have thought that this maybe might have had some sort of sci-fi element, and it was refreshingly very grounded. And like I said, the producer, Ram Bergman, frequently collaborates. He actually produced all 3 of those films that I just mentioned. Is how frequently he works with Rian Johnson. But yeah, so the acting and directing itself, there are subtle details, like I mentioned before, like, can I mention the scene without giving spoilers? Yes, I believe I can. When Marta's sitting down with Ransom at the little cafe, just after the will reading, she mentions some of the things that the detective has found, and you can see this look on Ransom's face that, given the context of the scene, can be seen as him just kind of like trying to process the kind of stress that Marta's going through, but after watching the film all the way through and then rewatching it, you can then see that that's more him just freaking out that he's being found out, sort of thing, and just trying to like cover his own ass, which, like I said, I thought was very well done. So acting and directing gets a 9. I think all of the actors portrayed their characters beautifully. Number 4, cinematography and editing. I've given this one an 8. There wasn't anything like super special that made me want to give it a 9, but I did still think that the way some of the shots were framed was particularly clever. Like, I think it's the closing shot. Nicely is a callback to the very beginning of the film when you first see this mug get put on a tray, and at the end Marta's holding that same mug, and on the side it says "My house, my rules, my coffee." But in this last shot, it's sort of a close-up of Marta, and she brings up the mug. She's holding its handle with one hand, and like the actual mug itself with another. And as she brings it up, her fingers are covering the last 2 lines, so it just says "My house" at the top, kind of as like a final bird to the other characters for how they've treated her throughout the film. And I don't know, I just thought that it was really like it was probably could have gone into directorial choice there as well, but I just thought, considering that it's the camera work rather than the actual acting or any character portrayal notes, that this was where it fit better. But yeah, I just thought it was a clever choice to have this like final little bird, because she doesn't say anything in that last shot. It's literally just she takes a sip of the coffee, and we're up that close, so we can read what the cup says, but all the other characters are actually down in the driveway. She's up on like the 3rd floor balcony or something like this, so they're not going to be able to read the cup unless they've got really good eyesight. So yeah, I just thought it was a nice little note, so the audience knows the decision that Marta's made to be able to bring the film to a nice conclusion. But yeah, like I said, nothing super special that made me want to give it a 9. Set design and location. It is as one of the I think it's the cop, I think it's Lakeith's character, says that the character in this film who gets murdered, played by Christopher Plummer, basically lives in a clue board, and then when you sort of look at it, there are basically 6 suspects in the case as well. Obviously there's more than 6 characters, but some of them are just sort of more or less they're there as like side characters to one of the suspects, just so you can get this like idea of what their family dynamic is, sort of thing. But yeah, it is pretty much exactly how you would imagine a good game of Cluedo to go. And then obviously there's like the grounds and stuff, contrasting this like grand 3-story mansion with Marta's like one floor apartment that she shares with her mother and her sister gives some nice contrast as to like this is what the rest of the characters are used to compared to this is like Marta's reality. So she's just trying to like make it through sort of thing. And yeah, I thought it was some good choices for locations and set design. So we get an 8 there. Soundtrack. I was very tempted to not put this up as high as I did in the end, mainly because I don't think there's actually any actual like songs as such in the soundtrack. I think it's all just whatever the composer wrote for the film, and so therefore it's really just sort of there for setting the mood sort of thing. But even then, it does its job. The music itself might be kind of forgettable, but when you're actually sitting there watching the film, it does do its job very well. I was very tempted to not put this up as high as I did, but I ended up giving this an 8 as well, simply because of how well it does its job at setting the mood. The other thing too is that silence in films can be used well, and it's the use of silence in this film does do its job of increasing the tension very well. So there's a bit there where Marta's basically getting mobbed by all the other characters, and the music sort of starts off in this, it's like a big panning shot, and it starts off kind of non-existent to begin with, and then as more and more characters enter the shot, the music itself starts to rise, so you can start to like and like it's like suspenseful music or whatever, so that starts to build the tension in the scene as well, so you really get a sense of how Marta's feeling in that instance. So yeah, gave it an 8. Number 7, special and visual effects. The only one we've really got to look at here is Marta has, if you haven't seen the film, Marta has a, as it's put by Daniel Craig's detective character, regurgitative reaction to mistruthing. Basically, if she lies, she vomits. She has a built-in lie detector, and basically that's the only like special effect, because obviously you're not wanting to actually be having one of your actors throw up on another one of your actors. That's disgusting. So anytime you see vomit in a film, it's likely just some concoction made to look like it, but it doesn't actually have any of the smell. It's not actually coming from the other person's stomach. And for the most part, they managed to steer around having to actually show her vomiting by having her vomit into an urn or the toilet or somewhere where her like mouth is like off frame, and she can just sort of make the retching vomiting noises without actually having to utilize this. But they do set it up nice and early, so that at the climax of the film, when she does actually vomit onto another character, like within the story, her character does actually vomit onto another character because she's lied about something, and basically outplayed them by doing so. And yeah, the whatever it is they used to make the vomit look realistic worked a charm. And then yeah, it's really only that one instance. Like I said, this film does not hang itself very heavily on needing to use any sort of practical effects or whatever. I think the only other case might be that they had some pyrotechnic works for one location that's seen for a grand total of about 5 minutes in the entire film. Excuse me. And other than that, yeah, it does not rely heavily at all on needing special visual or practical effects. So I think mainly for the reason that it doesn't need them so much, it kind of speaks to the fact that it is a good film, and so therefore giving this a low score, reflecting the fact that it's not really used a lot, kind of goes against what, you know, like how good the film is. I think not needing to use them actually works to this film's benefit, and so it's that for that reason, as well as the reason that anytime they did actually have to use them, it was done very well. Also gets an 8. Alright, costuming and makeup. I mean, the costumes for all of the characters do kind of reflect what the characters are. So, for instance, Toni Collette's character is like an Instagram influencer and owns a skincare brand or whatever, and so she's generally dressed in these very flashy sort of show-offy outfits because she's got this persona online that she needs to like maintain. Jamie Lee Curtis's character is very sort of rigid and likes to believe that she built her business from the ground up just like her father, and so she's generally seen wearing these like very almost authoritarian like, suits. And the Armistice character Marta dresses as you would imagine just a regular person to dress. It seems that this is set in sort of colder months, so she's got this big jacket on, she's got a scarf on, and yeah, they're not necessarily anything flashy or extravagant. They're there to serve a purpose rather than to be show-offy. Catherine Langsford's character is actually the daughter of Toni Collette's character, and is like a uni student, a college student or whatever, and is also kind of softly rebelling against her mother. So her costume very nicely reflects that as well. I mean, the same can be said for pretty much all of them. Jade Martell's character is very politically active, I believe is the way Michael Shannon's character puts it. And so he's like dressed up as if he was going to boarding school. So he's got like a blazer on, he's got his tie, he's got his long pants on and stuff, looking very sort of at least trying to look kind of like respectable, as if he was trying to run for office or whatever. So yeah, the costuming and makeup gets an 8 as well. They did very well at that. Accuracy and originality. It's a murder mystery. So I mean, the ability to be like, oh well, that kind of played out the way that did. It's a murder mystery, okay? Somebody died, detectives came in, they found out the truth, even though all the clues seem to point to someone else. That's it. If that's not the most basic murder mystery plotline summary ever, then I don't know what is. But this film just seems to do it well. I don't know. It did, like I said, rewatching it again and again, you still get that like intrigue. Whereas there are other murder mysteries that I've watched where that has not been the case. Pretty much once I found out who done it, go back to watch it again and say, I already know who did this. This is just background noise now. So I think for the reason that it does its job of creating intrigue on more than just the first occasion, gives just automatically, as an original piece, as well as sort of exceeding the expectations of its own genre, a 9. And then the marketing gets a 9 as well. Those, I mean, it's actually surprising how many almost spoilers are in those trailers. And then when you watch the film, you can, and knowing where the bits from the trailer come from, you can really kind of be like, okay, wow, yeah, no, like, if we'd gotten a different shot from that same scene, it would have spoiled everything, basically. So the marketing, plus it also does its job of being like, hey, come and see this film, it's going to be a good film. So it gets a 9, giving us, if you've been paying attention, 85%, which was our average that we needed to, that we were sort of competing against. But yeah, that brings me to the end of this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos from me, and the notification bell if you want to be notified when I upload new videos. All the links will be down in the description. Among those will be the channel New Rockstars actually did an Easter egg breakdown of this film, because it's a murder mystery. Of course there's going to be things, small hidden details for the audience to try and find, part of it being a murder mystery. So they did a full Easter egg breakdown. That link will be in the description as well. Plus, just a little bit of trivia to leave you with. If you've seen this film and you loved it as much as I did, good news, there is a sequel in production. Most likely, it's going to follow Benoit Blanc onto a different case, because I kind of don't see any story with any of these other characters. I think potentially the only other character that maybe might show up could possibly be Marta, if they do decide to try and bring back the full cast again for like a full sequel with all the characters. There's really only one way that story can go, and so there's not a whole heap of intrigue really in that. So I do think it's more or less going to just be a completely different setting, just the same detective, just following him around. In the same way that Death on the Nile is going to be a sequel to Murder on the Orient Express, but basically only having our detective as the recurring character. So yeah, until next time guys, get screwed on.